Now listen. Benjamin Franklin founded a daily newspaper, a tabloid. Benjamin Franklin became one of the foremost American diplomats. He single-handedly negotiated the French government support for the revolution. I hope I'm speaking well in London. That was what empowered the American forces to win. Today, there's a Benjamin Franklin Day in America. There are only 365 or 360 days in a year. They gave a day to one man who died about 300 years ago. That is the treasure of wisdom. It is not common sense, it's a costly sense. Come on, say costly. Wisdom is not common sense, it's costly sense. Very costly sense. Very costly sense. Benjamin Franklin read his way into greatness. He read his way into leadership. He wasn't waiting and wishing for it, he was working at it. How can someone with a 2-year formal education found a university that is still relevant today? From 1786. Oh, this is a very lazy generation. We just lay by and waiting for things to happen. We are killed by pleasure. Killed by pleasure. Think of Michael Faraday. How many have heard about Michael Faraday? Now I'm talking about these folks because they are believers. But they did not abuse the faith. Most of us are abusing the faith. I said, God, come and cook for me. Thank you, Jesus. Cook for me now. God, drive me to work. I don't feel like driving today. That's faith abuse. Michael Faraday was a lab. Now, let me tell you a story. He also had a 2-year formal education. I noted some of these things in my book, Winning Wisdom. Now, you see, Michael Faraday was also a printing apprentice. It was a booming business in their days, so people learned how to be a printer. So he was there. But every time scientists exhibited their experiments, in those days, they were going about not watching film and videos and movies like today. It was a knowledge era. Come on, say knowledge era. Scientists will come in and exhibit their experiment. People pay to enter to watch. Michael Faraday was paying to enter. Small boy, what will he do with science? Now, there was this great physicist in his time. They call him Humphrey Davis. Humphrey Davis was a professor. And then Michael Faraday went to one of those exhibitions and took note. Now, for him to take note with only 2 years of education, he must have equipped himself. To even understand the professor, he must have equipped himself. I mean, understand what I'm saying? Now, Michael Faraday binded the notes and sent it to this professor, just to satisfy his printing and then all that, how much he enjoyed the lecture. So one time, a time came when the lab attendant of this professor left. And this man needed a lab attendant. Then he remembered a boy gave him a binded note of his lecture one time. He said, this boy may be interested in being a lab attendant. So he rode on his horseback to trace the address. And he found Michael Faraday. Would you mind being my lab attendant? Oh, with all pleasure. So Michael Faraday was a lab attendant who grew to become a world-class physicist. Now, listen to me. In his lifetime, Humphrey Davis began to be envious of the intellectual capacity of Michael Faraday. In fact, his biographer said he was reasoning more logically than Humphrey Davis. Well, to cut the long story short, you know the story if you're in the sciences, how great a name Michael Faraday made for himself in the field of science. Michael Faraday was not only a believer, he was also a preacher. But sold out to an undying quest for knowledge, and so earned his place in history. We don't talk of wisdom without knowledge. Now, let me say this. Wisdom is the principal raw material for the making of leaders, and knowledge is the principal raw material for the making of wisdom. So, leaders are made of applied knowledge. Come and say applied knowledge. Knowledge is not doing what you think. Knowledge is doing what you have discovered.